The strange case of Shane Fell. On the evening of Thursday, the 9th of June 2011, 36-year-old Shane Fell spent several hours with his brother Brett at a daiquiri shop in Marrero, Louisiana. The two enjoyed a few games of pool together, laughing and catching up as brothers often do. After spending a couple of hours at the shop, they left in separate vehicles around midnight, each heading in the direction of home. Neither could have known that the night would soon take a mysterious turn that has remained unsolved for more than a decade. While driving along River Road, a winding stretch known for its sharp curves, Shane lost control of his vehicle. His car flipped over and landed in a ditch between Klein Road and Marrero Road. Despite the severity of the accident, Shane managed to climb out of his overturned car through one of its windows. The vehicle was left behind in the ditch, silent in the early morning darkness, while Shane himself seemed to vanish into the night. Not long after, Brett decided to call his brother to make sure he had gotten home safely. Instead of a calm voice on the other end of the line, Brett learned of the accident and immediately rushed toward the scene. He arrived approximately 20 minutes after the crash, expecting to find Shane nearby, perhaps shaken but waiting for help. Instead, what greeted him was a puzzling emptiness. His brother was nowhere to be found. Around the same time, officers also arrived and began searching the surrounding area. They scoured the ditch, the roadside, and the nearby fields, but there was no trace of Shane. One clue did stand out. A single shoe belonging to him was discovered stuck in the mud near his flipped car. This small piece of evidence confirmed that he had indeed climbed from the vehicle and reached the ground outside, but beyond that, his trail seemed to vanish completely. His cell phone rang unanswered as family and officers attempted to reach him, but it offered no guidance as to where he might have gone. The mystery of Shane Fell has puzzled his loved ones and investigators ever since that night. It is unusual for someone to walk away from an accident and seemingly disappear without a trace, yet that is precisely what happened in Marrero. With no further belongings left behind, no signs of direction, and no witnesses to where he may have gone, the unanswered questions linger over the years. To this day, his family continues to hold on to hope while also grappling with the uncertainty of his absence. Shane was known as a kind-hearted man with close ties to his family and friends, someone who enjoyed music, laughter, and the simple joys of life. The sudden and unexplained nature of his disappearance makes the loss even more difficult to comprehend. The story of Shane Fell endures as one of Louisiana's most perplexing mysteries. A single car crash, a shoe in the mud, and a vanished man form the pieces of a puzzle that has yet to be solved. For those who knew him best, the search for answers has never faded. Misty Copsy went to the fair and was never seen again. In September of 1992, 14-year-old Misty Copsy of Puyallup, Washington, was filled with excitement. Like many teenagers in her town, she looked forward to the annual Puyallup Fair, a lively event that brought rides, food, and friends together. Misty was a typical teenager, balancing her love of independence with the protective watch of her mother, Diana. On the evening of the 17th of September, she convinced her mother to let her attend the fair with her close friend, Trina Bovard. Diana, who worked overnight shifts as a caretaker for an elderly woman, worried about how her daughter would get home, since she would be unavailable to drive her. After much pleading, Misty promised that she would ride the bus home, and her mother reluctantly agreed. That evening began as any fair outing would. Misty and Trina spent hours walking the crowded paths, enjoying rides and carnival food, soaking up the vibrant atmosphere. Time, however, slipped away from them. As the evening wore on, Misty realized that she had missed the last bus home. The problem was simple for Trina, who lived only a mile and a half from the fairgrounds and could easily walk home. Misty's home, however, was in Spanaway, nearly a half-hour car ride away and more than 8 miles on foot. Trying to solve the problem, Misty called her mother from a payphone and suggested that 18-year-old Reuben Schmidt, an older acquaintance, could pick her up. Diana, wary of this idea, firmly told her not to rely on Reuben and asked her to find another ride. Misty agreed, hung up, and tried to reach out to others, but no suitable ride materialized. Facing few options, Misty set out on foot, heading toward Highway 512, intending to make the long walk home. She never arrived. When Diana realized her daughter had not returned, she quickly reported her missing. To her devastation, the authorities initially dismissed her concerns. They noted that Misty had once been reported missing previously and pointed to rumors from classmates claiming to have seen or spoken with her. On this shaky basis, the case was prematurely closed, leaving Diana to shoulder the search herself. As pressure built, investigators eventually revisited the case. They spoke to Trina, who initially claimed that she and Misty had parted ways after unsuccessfully arranging a ride with Reuben. Trina admitted that Misty called Reuben twice, once to ask for a ride, and again to suggest he stop by her house for gas money. Reuben, according to his own account, declined both times. At this point, Trina said she and Misty separated, each walking in different directions. However, police soon uncovered that this story was not true. Trina did not walk home as she claimed, but instead accepted a ride from her 23-year-old boyfriend, Michael Reiner. Michael was significantly older than Trina and had troubling accusations in his past, including an incident involving a young girl when he was a teenager, though it never resulted in charges. When police pressed Trina further, she admitted that Misty had declined a ride from Michael because she was uncomfortable. Investigators speculated that after dropping Trina off, Michael might have returned to the fairgrounds and encountered Misty again. Michael, subjected to questioning and a polygraph test, was eventually dropped as a suspect after reportedly passing the exam. Attention shifted back to Reuben. His story began to change, and he confessed that after Misty's second call, he experienced a blackout, remembering nothing until he woke the next morning at his grandmother's home in Enumclaw. The troubling detail was that his claimed lack of gas contradicted his ability to drive all the way to Enumclaw, a trip longer than the distance from his home to the fair. Friends of Reuben later claimed that he bragged about Misty being buried on his grandmother's property, though he insisted these statements were made in frustration to silence questions. He underwent 2 separate polygraph tests, one inconclusive and one that he passed. With no further evidence, the investigation into him came to a standstill. Despite the lack of official progress, disturbing discoveries surfaced. Misty's jeans, underwear, and one sock were found in a ditch along Highway 410, far from where she had last been seen. Nearby, her toothbrush and hairpick were also located, both items she often carried. 15 years later, male DNA was discovered on the jeans, though it did not provide immediate answers. Adding another layer to the mystery was local man Corey Bober, who theorized that Misty's disappearance was linked to 2 other young girls, Kimberly DeLange and Anna Chebetnoy, who had gone missing in the area in 1988 and 1990. Corey noted that the girls vanished 2 years and 1 month apart, with Misty disappearing 2 years and 1 month after Anna. His theory initially intrigued Diana, who welcomed his help, but she grew uneasy as he became increasingly entangled in her life. Eventually, she suspected him of involvement, a view shared by some in the Puyallup Police Department. Corey attempted to prove his innocence by agreeing to a polygraph, though he later cancelled and never rescheduled. While he remains a controversial figure in discussions of the case, he has never been formally considered a strong suspect, partly due to a partial alibi and his struggles with health and legal issues. More than 3 decades have passed since Misty Copsy set out for a night of fun at the fair and never returned. Despite the tireless efforts of her mother, and despite the occasional discoveries of evidence, the mystery remains unsolved. Misty's disappearance has left an enduring void for her loved ones, who continue to seek answers in the hope that one day the truth will be known. The case stands as a heartbreaking reminder of a vibrant young life interrupted, and of the determination of a mother who refused to let her daughter be forgotten. The Mount Baldy Incident. The mystery surrounding the Mount Baldy incident remains one of the most haunting and perplexing stories to emerge from Southern California in the late 1970s. At its center are 3 unidentified young men, each discovered within a narrow span of months and within only a few miles of one another in the San Gabriel Mountains. Despite decades having passed since their discoveries, these cases continue to defy explanation, leaving investigators and members of the public with a lingering sense of unease. The first case began on Wednesday, the 28th of March, 1979. On that day, 2 hikers exploring the Mount Baldy area of Los Angeles County came across a deeply unsettling sight. Far below Glendora Ridge Road, near mile marker 10.74, Approximately 425 feet down a steep ravine in the Angeles National Forest, they spotted human remains. What they discovered was the headless torso of a young man. This individual, later referred to simply as Mount Baldy John Doe, had been resting in the wilderness for approximately 1 week, suggesting that his passing likely occurred around Wednesday, the 21st of March. The body, though partially intact, bore no clear signs of injury that could establish an immediate explanation for his end. Even so, authorities concluded that his situation was not natural, pointing towards circumstances that involved another party. The remains belonged to a white male believed to be between 17 and 21 years of age, though some sources extended that range slightly from 16 to 22. He stood at an estimated 5 feet 7 inches to 5 feet 10 inches in height, with a slender and well-developed frame. His head, never recovered, meant that his hair and eye color remain unknown. A scar marked his upper left arm, and his complexion was described as light to medium. No clothing was found on or near him, leaving only further questions. Most newspapers at the time reported that saw marks were present at the neck, which suggested deliberate removal of the head, perhaps after his passing. Yet, one article complicated the narrative by suggesting the possibility that the head may have been cut or hacked away, with experts debating whether the marks pointed more toward a saw or another instrument. This conflicting detail would later become important, as the methods described in other cases appeared to echo these findings. Roughly 2 months later, in May of 1979, another grim discovery was made not far from Mount Baldy. A road maintenance worker found a skull near Claremont, also in Los Angeles County, along Mount Baldy Road between mile markers 1 and 18. Contemporary reports differ slightly on the exact day of recovery. Some note Saturday the 19th of May, others Sunday the 20th, while modern databases record the date as Tuesday the 22nd. Regardless of the exact timing, the finding would soon be linked to what some suspected was a pattern. This skull, referred to as Claremont John Doe, bore evidence of a gunshot wound. Furthermore, as with the earlier case, several reports noted saw marks at the neck. Some described these as definite, while others hinted that the head appeared battered or broken from the rest of the body. Only the skull and possibly a few vertebrae were recovered, though strands of blonde or strawberry hair measuring 4 to 6 inches in length were still present. Claremont John Doe was believed to be a young white male, with contemporary accounts placing his age at around 16 to 22, though modern records broaden this slightly to 19 to 26. His dental records showed at least 8 silver fillings, with a slight overbite and a small gap between his 2 front teeth. These details painted a vivid picture of an individual who, despite his anonymity, clearly bore markers that could one day lead to identification. Then, scarcely days after this second discovery, a third case emerged. On the evening of either Tuesday the 22nd or Wednesday the 23rd of May, 1979, a man walking his dog near San Antonio Heights, just north of Upland in San Bernardino County, encountered another set of remains. This individual, known as Upland John Doe, was discovered on a hillside not far from Mount Baldy Road, in or near a flood control channel. Like the others, Upland John Doe was a young white male, estimated between 16 and 22 years of age. His remains had been resting for about 2 weeks, placing his passing around Wednesday the 9th of May. His body, partly decomposed and partly skeletonized, was found without clothing, but a hemp rope lay around his torso. Most unsettling, his head and left arm were absent, with saw marks discovered at the neck and arm. Investigators described him as standing between 5 feet 6 inches and 5 feet 10 inches tall, weighing around 160 pounds, with body hair that was blonde or strawberry in color. His fingerprints from the right hand were preserved, though his dental information was unavailable. The similarities between the 3 discoveries were immediately striking. All 3 individuals were young men, all found within a 5-mile radius of one another, all discovered within a 2-month span, and all presenting with partial or complete decapitation, often with saw marks as evidence. The question quickly arose, were these 3 separate tragedies, or were they interconnected parts of a larger, more sinister story? Initially, authorities leaned toward the view that the skull from Claremont John Doe did not correspond to either of the other bodies. Newspapers from May and June of 1979 emphasized that all 3 represented separate individuals. However, on the 6th of June that year, One article speculated that the skull might belong to the body found near Upland, though this theory was never scientifically confirmed. The ambiguity surrounding these connections has persisted ever since, adding to the confusion of the case. Later, in the 21st century, some organizations began to merge records, treating Mount Baldy John Doe and Claremont John Doe as the same person. This confusion stemmed from the similarities in age and proximity of discovery, but it ultimately created contradictions within public databases. In reality, 3 distinct NamUse entries remain active today, one for each individual, confirming that investigators regard them as separate. In August of 2025, investigator Betsy Magdaleno of the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office clarified directly that Mount Baldy John Doe and Claremont John Doe are 2 different cases and have never been scientifically matched. The Mount Baldy incident, as it came to be known, represents more than just the unsolved identities of 3 young men. It reflects the haunting uncertainty that arises when the most basic truths, who someone was, what circumstances surrounded them, and why their remains came to rest in such a way, cannot be answered. The passage of time has only deepened the mystery. Families across the country who lost young men in the late 1970s still wonder if one of these unknown Does could be their loved one. Despite fingerprints, dental records, and in some cases DNA being preserved, no confirmed identifications have been made. To this day, the case inspires discussions among researchers, web forums, and online sleuths. Some propose that the 3 individuals may have crossed paths in life or perhaps were connected by similar circumstances, while others suggest coincidence. Regardless of theory, the stark fact remains that 3 lives ended in close proximity, and their stories remain untold. The San Gabriel Mountains, with their rugged trails and steep ravines, still hold secrets from that spring of 1979. The winding roads that cut through Mount Baldy and Claremont continue to attract hikers, travelers, and adventurers, most unaware that they pass near the sites of one of California's strangest mysteries. For now, the Mount Baldy incident stands unresolved, a chilling reminder of the fragility of identity and the silence that follows when answers remain just out of reach. Unsealed warrant reveals police tracked key figure in Jodi Huisentruit's mysterious case. The mysterious disappearance of Iowa news anchor Jodi Huisentruit remains one of the most heartbreaking and perplexing cases in recent history. Nearly 3 decades after she vanished, the search for answers continues, with new developments offering both hope and renewed questions. Jodi, a 27-year-old television anchor for Iowa Minnesota TV in Mason City, Iowa, disappeared in the early morning hours of June 27, 1995, on her way to work. Her disappearance stunned the community and has since drawn national attention, yet no arrests have been made and her whereabouts remain unknown. Jodi was last heard from when her producer, Amy Kunz, called her around 4 a.m. to check on her arrival. Jodi, who had overslept, assured Amy that she was getting ready and would be in shortly, but when she failed to appear by 5 a.m, concern quickly grew. A welfare check was requested, and police arrived at Jodi's apartment at the Key Apartments. Inside, there was no sign of disturbance, but the parking lot told a different story. Her red Mazda Miata was still there, and personal items including her blow-dryer, shoes, and earrings were scattered on the ground near the car. Investigators also discovered drag marks, suggesting a struggle had taken place. A partial palm print was lifted from the car, but over the years, it has not led to any definitive answers. Theories have swirled around the case since the beginning. One persistent theory involves the possibility that Jodi had a stalker. As a well-known face in a small town, she was in the homes of thousands of viewers every day. This kind of visibility can sometimes create the illusion of familiarity and attachment, especially for those who may blur the line between public presence and personal connection. 8 months before her disappearance, Jodi had reported being followed by a white pickup truck. Then, just a day before she vanished, she reportedly told friends that she intended to change her phone number due to receiving unsettling phone calls. These details have only fueled speculation that someone may have been watching her for some time. John Van Cease, a friend of Jodi's who was 22 years older, told police he was the last person to see her. He claimed she visited his home the night before her disappearance to watch a video of a birthday celebration he had hosted for her earlier that month. His involvement has long been debated, and in 2017 he was asked to provide DNA, fingerprints and palm prints to a grand jury. However, no charges were filed, and Van Cisse maintained his innocence until his passing in 2024. Following his death, his family requested that certain case documents be made public to clear his name. A judge partially unsealed a warrant, revealing that police had tracked Van Cisse's vehicle, but withheld additional details to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation. In October 2023, a new lead took investigators to Winstead, Minnesota. Following an undisclosed tip, police from Iowa and Minnesota searched a city-owned park near a construction site. The search sparked interest and raised hopes, especially among those closest to Jodi. While no human remains were discovered, only those of farm animals, the search represented the first major public activity in years and rekindled the possibility that answers might still be out there. Caroline Lowe, a former journalist and member of the Find Jodi team, has spent years working to keep Jodi's case in the public eye. She remains in contact with Jodi's sister, Joanne Nather, and shares every development in the case. Nather continues to hope that someday her family will know what happened and be able to bring her sister home. Lowe emphasizes the importance of visibility, believing that every renewed headline or search could be the one that breaks the case open. Despite being declared legally deceased in 2001, Jodi's disappearance is still being actively investigated by Mason City Police. The case remains open, and officials continue to receive and evaluate new information. The hope is that someone, somewhere, holds the final piece of the puzzle and may yet come forward. Above a Mason City highway, a billboard with Jodi's face serves as a daily reminder of the young anchor with a bright smile and promising future. For those who knew her, and those who only know her story, the message is clear. Jodi has not been forgotten. Her family, friends, and dedicated investigators continue to search for answers, determined that one day the truth will come to light. The mysterious case of Teddy Wang Te-Hui. The disappearance of Hong Kong tycoon Teddy Wang Te-Hui remains one of the most puzzling and enduring mysteries in modern Asian history. Known for his wealth and influence as the chairman of Chinachem Group, Wang was no stranger to danger. His high-profile life had already drawn unwanted attention when he was first kidnapped in 1983. On that occasion, he was eventually released after spending 8 days chained to a bed, following a ransom payment of 33 million Hong Kong dollars by his wife, Nina Wang Kung Yu Sum. However, the second kidnapping proved far more ominous. On April 10, 1990, Teddy Wang disappeared once again, this time shortly after leaving the Jockey Club in Hong Kong. What followed was an intense and dramatic attempt to rescue the businessman. His captors demanded an unprecedented 60 million in exchange for his safe return. Nina Wang, who had once again stepped into the role of negotiator and caretaker, paid 34 million of the ransom, but unlike the first ordeal, this time her husband was never returned. In the weeks that followed, anxiety turned into despair as hopes of Teddy's safe return began to fade. On April 26, 1990, just days after the partial ransom payment, 6 individuals were arrested in Taiwan, including a Taiwanese intelligence officer and at least one Hong Kong resident. Some of these individuals later claimed that Teddy had been taken out to sea and thrown into the water from a small boat on April 13th. Despite extensive investigations and searches, his body was never recovered. In 1999, nearly a decade after his disappearance, Teddy Wang was declared legally deceased. The mystery deepened further when Nina Wang disputed the contents of her husband's will, eventually becoming the chief beneficiary of his estate. Legal battles followed, but she maintained that her actions were in accordance with his wishes. Adding another layer to the mystery were claims from her personal assistant, who stated that Nina had received phone calls from Teddy as late as the year 2000, raising questions about whether he may have somehow survived or escaped under unknown circumstances. Theories about Teddy Wang's fate continue to circulate. Some speculate that the case may have been more complex than initially believed, possibly involving figures with high-level connections. Others wonder if he may have been held in secret or relocated. Without concrete evidence or a recovered body, these speculations have remained unconfirmed. The disappearance of Teddy Wang is not only a personal tragedy, but also a story that captivated Hong Kong and the international business world. It involves wealth, power, family conflict, and international intrigue. To this day, the case remains unresolved. While legal closure came with his declaration of death, the mystery of what truly happened to Teddy Wang Te Hui continues to cast a long shadow over the legacy of one of Hong Kong's most prominent business families. The mysterious case of Christopher Matthew Kerze. In April of 1990, 17-year-old Christopher Matthew Kerze was a bright, motivated student living in Eagan, Minnesota, a suburb just southwest of Minneapolis. He was known for his academic excellence, having earned recognition as a National Merit Scholar semi-finalist and a member of the National Honor Society. In addition to his achievements in the classroom, Christopher participated in extracurricular activities, including the high school swim team and band, where he played the clarinet. Outside of school, he enjoyed both indoor hobbies like reading and working on his computer, and outdoor pursuits such as skiing and camping. Friends and family described him as intelligent, thoughtful, and dependable. Because he was so committed to his studies, it was unusual when Christopher asked to stay home from school on April 20th, 1990. That morning, he told his mother, Lonnie, that he had a severe headache. Concerned, she gave him some pain medication and agreed to let him rest at home. Lonnie, who worked at a local elementary school, left him alone in the house for the day. Christopher's father, Jim, was away on a business trip, but the family felt confident that their responsible teenage son would be fine. When Lonnie returned home later that evening, she immediately noticed that the family's blue Dodge Caravan was missing and their dog, Bowser, was loose in the front yard. Upon entering the house, she found a handwritten note from Christopher on the kitchen table. The message read, "Mum, something important came up. Feeling somewhat better. Back by 6, unless I get lost." The word lost had been underlined twice, something Lonnie believed was a light-hearted reference to how Christopher often had trouble with directions while driving. 6 o'clock came and went, and there was no sign of Christopher. As the hours passed, Lonnie grew increasingly anxious. She called Jim, who immediately ended his business trip and began the journey home. Around midnight, the couple contacted local police to report Christopher missing. At the time, law enforcement advised that they had to wait 24 hours before filing an official missing person report, a standard practice back then. The next day, the Kerze family officially filed the report. That same day, a letter arrived at their home postmarked from Duluth, Minnesota, approximately 2 hours north. It was written by Christopher and appeared to be in his handwriting. In the letter, he admitted to faking the headache in order to skip school and said he had taken the car to travel somewhere unknown, expressing that he intended to disappear. The letter also expressed sorrow and a desire not to hurt his loved ones. He concluded with the words, "Take heart, because if just one person is better off for having known me, my life will not have been wasted." This message shocked and devastated his parents. They had noticed some emotional struggles, but never imagined things had reached such a serious point. That same day, they discovered that Christopher had withdrawn $200 from his savings account and that one of Jim's firearms was missing. The ammunition, which was stored separately, had not been taken. On April 22nd, 2 days after he left home, the family's Dodge Caravan was found abandoned in the George Washington State Forest near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Authorities located the keys inside the van, along with a note identifying the vehicle. Interestingly, the forest was near where Christopher's grandparents had once lived, although they stated they had not seen him. Search dogs traced a scent about a mile into the woods before it abruptly ended. No other clues were found. Jim later described the moment he learned the van had been found as deeply emotional, saying he physically felt the weight of fear and uncertainty settle into his chest. The family hoped the discovery would lead to answers, but instead, it led to more questions. Investigators spoke to several witnesses. One man claimed he had picked up a young hitchhiker who matched Christopher's description and dropped him off in Duluth, the same city from which the letter had been mailed. A friend of Christopher's reported receiving multiple mysterious phone calls over the course of several months following his disappearance. The caller never spoke, but background sounds suggested a party or social gathering. The calls would end abruptly when the friend attempted to engage the caller in conversation. Several other unconfirmed sightings of Christopher were reported. One individual claimed to have seen him in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, but no substantial evidence backed the claim. Months later, a hunter found a firearm in the woods that matched the description of the shotgun taken from the Kerze household. However, police could not definitively link it to the case. In 2004, an anonymous letter was sent to the investigating police department. The writer claimed that Christopher was alive, referred to him as their guardian angel, and insisted he would return when the time was right. The letter also urged authorities to stop searching for him. Despite the hopeful tone, police ultimately considered it a hoax due to the lack of verifying details. Jim and Lonnie Kerze never stopped looking for their son. Even after moving out of the family home, they kept their original phone number in hopes that Christopher might someday call. As recently as 2016, the couple participated in media interviews, urging the public to come forward with any information that might bring them answers. In 1993, the band Soul Asylum released a music video for their song Runaway Train, which featured images of missing teenagers. Christopher was one of those featured. While several individuals from the video were eventually located, many, including Christopher, remain missing to this day. When he disappeared, Christopher was 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighed around 135 pounds. He had brown hair and eyes and noticeable cystic acne. He was last seen wearing a denim trench coat, black sweatshirt, blue or black jeans, brown leather boat shoes, and a zebra-striped Swatch watch. He was also carrying his driver's license and wallet. To this day, the disappearance of Christopher Matthew Kerze remains unsolved. His case continues to inspire both sadness and hope. For his parents, the passage of time has never dulled the desire for resolution. They continue to believe that one day they will finally learn the truth about what happened to their son. The strange disappearance of Danette Latonia Millbrook and Jeanette Latrice Millbrook. The disappearance of Danette Latonia Millbrook and Jeanette Latrice Millbrook remains one of the most unsettling and underreported missing persons cases in American history. The fraternal twins vanished on March 18, 1990, from Augusta, Georgia, when they were just 15 years old. Despite the strange circumstances of their disappearance and the family's continued efforts to find them, their case was closed prematurely and remained dormant for over 2 decades. Danette and Jeanette were typical teenagers growing up in the close-knit community of Augusta. They lived with their mother, Louise, and their siblings in a newly relocated apartment further from their school, Lucy Laney High School. The girls were known to be respectful and well-behaved, and neither had a history of running away or getting into trouble. They had recently transferred schools due to the move, and they were trying to adjust to the change. On the day they disappeared, the girls had run a series of errands and visits around town. Their day began with a trip to a local church's chicken, and upon returning home, they told their mother that a man in a van had followed them for part of the way. Though unsettling, they did not appear overly alarmed, and nothing more is known about the man or the vehicle. Later, they walked to their godfather's house to borrow bus fare for the week. Their new home was further from their high school, and they needed money to take the city bus. After receiving the money, which included extra for snacks, they visited a cousin's house and then stopped by their older sister's residence. In both cases, the girls asked someone to walk home with them, which was uncharacteristic and raised questions later. Both requests were declined, one due to impending darkness and the other due to recent childbirth. The girls' final known stop was at the Pump and Shop gas station on the corner of 12th Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. There they bought snacks and soda. The clerk, who knew the girls, said they behaved normally and didn't appear distressed. She would be the last confirmed person to see them. From there, they would have walked through a short, well-lit route to get home, but they never arrived. Danette was wearing a white Mickey Mouse shirt, white jeans, and black shoes. Jeanette was dressed in a blue pullover over a white turtleneck, a beige skirt, white stockings, and white sneakers. Both had shoulder-length jerry-curled hair, pierced ears, and a scar near their navels from surgery they had shortly after birth. The twins were average height and build for their age. When the girls failed to return home, their family grew worried. They attempted to report the girls missing that evening, but were told by authorities to wait 24 hours before filing a report, a common but deeply flawed practice at the time. When the report was finally made, the investigation seemed minimal and quickly lost momentum. Adding to the family's frustration, the original police file reportedly went missing, and clerical errors in the reports, such as misspelled names, persisted in official databases, making it harder for external groups to find and investigate the case. What confused and saddened the family most was that the case was closed within a year, reportedly after the twins turned 17. According to some explanations, it was assumed they had run away and were now of an age where they could choose to remain missing. Another explanation was that a juvenile officer mistakenly told investigators that the girls had been found. Yet another account claimed that the twins had entered the foster care system and were later adopted. However, this theory was debunked when it was found that a close relative's children were in foster care, possibly leading to confusion. Despite the lack of law enforcement follow-up, the Millbrook family continued to push for answers. Their perseverance, combined with growing public interest, eventually led to the case being reopened in 2013 by the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. In a public statement, the sheriff acknowledged that a serious oversight had occurred and promised to treat the reopened case with the seriousness it deserved. DNA samples were collected from family members in 2017, a sign that investigators were exploring all avenues, including the possibility that the girls' remains could be found and identified. However, by 2019, it was unclear if the investigation had made any progress or if it remained active. Over the years, the twins' story has drawn renewed attention through podcasts, independent journalism, and advocacy efforts. Despite this, their case still lacks the media coverage often seen in other missing persons cases. Advocates have pointed out that race and socioeconomic status may have played a role in how little attention the case received at the time of the disappearance and in the years that followed. The disappearance of Danette and Jeanette Millbrook remains a deeply troubling mystery. Their story is a sobering reminder of how critical early and sustained investigative work is in missing persons cases, especially involving teenagers. For the Millbrook family, the search for answers continues, driven by love, memory, and the hope that one day justice will be served, or at the very least, that the truth will finally be known. The mysterious 300 million yen robbery. On December 10, 1968, one of Japan's most astonishing and mysterious crimes unfolded in the quiet suburbs of West Tokyo. What became known as the Great 300 million yen robbery was not a typical heist involving weapons, violence, or dramatic getaways. Instead, it was a carefully crafted con, executed with deception and precision, and remains one of the country's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. The robbery involved the theft of approximately 300 million in cash, an amount equivalent to over 1 billion yen, or around $7.3 million today. The money was being transported by bank employees in a standard passenger car headed for Toshiba's local factory to fund employee bonuses. At the time, it was common for companies in Japan to distribute bonuses in physical cash, and bank transfers were far less prevalent. Security practices also lacked the rigor seen today, as banks often used ordinary vehicles and unarmed staff to move large sums, believing this made them less conspicuous. A few days prior to the robbery, the manager of the Kokubunji branch of Japan Trust Bank received a threatening letter. The note, composed with both handwriting and printed clippings, warned that a female staff member should deliver a sum of 3 million yen to a designated location. If the demand was ignored, the sender claimed both the bank and the manager's home would be destroyed. Concerned, the bank contacted the authorities, who prepared an ambush with dozens of officers stationed at the drop-off point, but no one showed up. The police concluded the letter was a hoax and closed the case. Still, the bank manager took the threat seriously and warned employees to remain alert. It was a tense period, as the country was experiencing economic unrest and protests related to inequality. Extortion threats were not uncommon, though they rarely materialized into actual events. On the morning of December 10th, a black Nissan Cedric sedan left the bank, carrying 3 heavy metal boxes containing the cash. 4 bank workers were inside, all unarmed, as the vehicle made its way through the city in heavy rain. As they neared their destination, a man on a motorcycle approached, appearing to be a traffic officer. He signaled for them to stop and informed them that an explosion had reportedly taken place at the bank and the manager's home. He warned them that their vehicle might be rigged with explosives and instructed them to evacuate immediately. Concerned for their safety, the employees exited the vehicle while the supposed officer checked beneath it. Suddenly, smoke and flames erupted under the car. The man shouted for them to take cover as he jumped into the vehicle and drove it away. Believing he was moving it to a safe distance, the employees waited for an explosion, but none came. Realizing something was wrong, they approached the scene again. What they found was a spent flare, a crudely disguised motorcycle, and no trace of the car or the money. The truth soon dawned on them. They had been duped in an elaborate hoax. Within moments, a master impersonator had driven off with a fortune, leaving no immediate leads. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police launched a massive investigation. Roadblocks were established across the city, and thousands of vehicles were searched. Yet the trail quickly went cold. Subsequent investigation revealed that the thief had switched vehicles multiple times. The original bank car was abandoned, and the money transferred into another vehicle at a different location. Each of the cars used in the process had been covered with tarps, delaying their discovery. The meticulous planning became clear. The thief left behind a trail of evidence, but much of it appeared intentionally misleading. Police processed fingerprints and other physical clues, but were unable to identify the suspect. Witnesses provided descriptions, and a composite sketch was distributed widely, with over 780,000 copies printed and shared across Japan. Yet no credible leads emerged. Authorities interviewed thousands of people, cross-referencing more than 6 million fingerprints. Still, no matches were found. At one point, suspicion fell on a 19-year-old known as Boy S., the son of a police officer and leader of a local youth gang. He reportedly resembled the composite sketch and may have had knowledge of law enforcement procedures. Tragically, after being brought in for questioning, he passed away shortly after by ingesting poison. His father insisted on his innocence, and later, authorities found no evidence linking him to the crime. The composite image was withdrawn, and the investigation lost one of its few promising leads. The investigation lasted 7 years and became the most extensive in Japanese history. A staggering 170 officers were involved, and the case cost more than triple the amount that was stolen. Yet, despite the vast resources deployed, the case remained unsolved. By 1988, the statute of limitations expired. Any hope of prosecuting the criminal vanished with it. To this day, no one knows the identity of the person who carried out the robbery, how they planned it so effectively, or what became of the money. Speculation has persisted for decades. Some believe it was an inside job or involved someone with law enforcement knowledge. Others suggest it may have been politically motivated or carried out as a form of protest against corporate wealth. But without hard evidence, these theories remain purely speculative. What makes the Great 300 Million robbery particularly intriguing is the level of sophistication and restraint. No weapons were used, no one was harmed, and the thief vanished without a trace. It stands as a rare case of a crime committed with such precision that it left no viable trail, only questions. Decades later, the case still captures the imagination of investigators, authors, and the public. It has inspired books, films, and television dramas. The image of a calm, calculated individual impersonating a police officer, wielding only fear and a flair to escape with millions, is as compelling as it is unsettling. The story endures not just because of the amount stolen, but because it challenges assumptions about criminal behavior and law enforcement capabilities. The mysterious lights over Hudson Valley. The serene Hudson River Valley in New York, known for its affluent communities and scenic landscapes, became the unlikely backdrop for one of the most widely witnessed UFO phenomena in American history. Between 1983 and 1986, more than 5,000 residents across New York and parts of Connecticut reported seeing unexplained lights in the sky. What followed was a mix of public fascination, official skepticism, and years of lingering questions that have never fully been resolved. Beginning in the early 1980s, a series of strange sightings gripped the area. Eyewitnesses described formations of bright lights, often arranged in a circular arc or V-shape, silently moving across the night sky. These lights shifted positions and changed formations, exhibiting flight behavior that many believed was not consistent with known aircraft. Some sightings were so startling that motorists pulled over on highways to stare into the sky in awe. One of the most talked about encounters took place at the Indian Point nuclear power plant. Security personnel there reported a large, silent craft hovering for a brief period above the facility. The craft was estimated to be nearly 900 feet long. Sightings of boomerang-shaped, silent crafts became more frequent, drawing attention from both curious locals and national media. Among those who reported sightings was Dennis Sant, a well-respected government employee and family man living in Brewster, New York. On March 17, 1983, he witnessed a massive structure in the sky, described as metallic and girded in appearance, hovering silently with vivid, iridescent lights. He recounted how the experience instilled fear and unease, as thoughts of unknown encounters and being taken away flooded his mind. Traffic on Interstate 84 came to a standstill that night, as other drivers joined Dennis in watching the unusual craft drift overhead. It marked just the beginning of what would become a series of widespread and coordinated sightings across the region. Just a week later, Officer Andy Sadoff of the Newcastle Police Department had a similar encounter during a routine patrol. At nearly the same time, Ed Burns, a computer engineer and manager for IBM, was driving along the Taconic Parkway when he noticed his car radio filling with static. Looking up, he saw a triangular craft which he estimated to be the size of a football field, gliding silently above him. Burns pulled off the road and joined other motorists who had also stopped to witness the spectacle. Like many others, he believed the object could not have been from Earth. The object appeared to be traveling northward across the Hudson Valley. Within minutes, police departments across the region were inundated with calls. Officer William Wolfe Jr., working dispatch at the Yorktown station, recalled a surge of reports as residents described massive formations of lights. Officer Kevin Soravia, who arrived shortly after, stated he saw an object with nearly 20 lights, forming a V-shape that stretched several hundred yards across the sky. However, not all officials agreed on what they were seeing. Officer Wolfe believed the lights resembled aircraft flying in formation. He noted the sound of engines and said that from his perspective, the display could easily be explained by multiple small planes flying together. This interpretation was further supported by observations from Anthony Capaldi, an air traffic control specialist, who believed the sightings were the result of stunt pilots flying in tight formation. From his vantage point in the control tower, it appeared as though multiple lights were blending into one large source due to their synchronized movements. Still, many residents and investigators remained unconvinced. Author and UFO researcher Philip Imbrogno, who had interviewed numerous eyewitnesses, stated that sightings had occurred well before the alleged stunt flying began. He believed that while the pranksters may have tried to replicate the lights in later months, the original sightings involved something entirely different. Further complicating matters was home video footage taken by Brewster resident Bob Pozzuoli in June 1984. The video showed a rigid light formation hovering in the sky, which experts later analyzed and found to be moving as if it were a single, solid object rather than individual aircraft. Eyewitnesses present during the filming confirmed that it did not resemble the noisy, engine-driven flights seen in the weeks that followed. Despite the theory involving stunt pilots, the unique characteristics of the earlier sightings, size, silence, and seemingly impossible movements, left many with lingering doubts. Witnesses who had seen both the supposed prank flights and the initial mysterious objects claimed there was no comparison. Today, the Hudson Valley sightings remain one of the most documented and debated UFO events in American history. While skeptics point to the explanation involving local pilots, others continue to believe that what hovered silently above the valley's forests and towns was something far more unusual. Decades later, the mystery endures, carried by those who remain convinced that what they witnessed in the skies over Hudson Valley defied any earthly explanation. Evidence of the United States Air Force actively covering up angel hair reports. For as long as there have been sightings of unidentified flying objects in the sky, there have been reported incidents of a mysterious material descending from the sky. Known as angel hair, angel grass, or star jelly, UFO researchers claim that fallen thread-like material, often described as being similar in likeness to cobwebs or gelatinous hair strands, are believed to have an extraterrestrial origin and could be physical evidence of otherworldly intelligence. Even more interesting, reports of angel hair have been sighted all around the world, predominantly across Europe and parts of the United States, and hold similar descriptions despite the material being less popularly known by UFO researchers. Even more peculiar, an incident reported by a housewife back in 1956 appears to shed light on the active cover-ups surrounding the impossible-to-explain material by United States Air Force personnel. Sometime late in the afternoon on the 25th of September, back in 1956, one of the strangest angel hair reports was made in the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, that many researchers believe to have been an organized cover-up from Air Force personnel. According to the report, an anonymous housewife living within a suburban area of Cincinnati had noticed a strange web-like fibrous material floating down into her yard from the sky. When looking up into the sky, it appeared as if the material was falling from some indeterminate height in the clouds and appeared to have been isolated within a region of only a couple hundred yards on and surrounding her property. Unsure of what the material was, and believing that the fibrous gossamer could have been potentially harmful or from a supernatural source, the housewife would contact the local police and report the strange incident, hoping for immediate action to be taken. Oddly enough, despite the strange nature of her sighting, local law enforcement appeared to have completely ignored her request and shrugged off the claim as nothing more than harmless pollution. Fearing that her sighting would lead to a cover-up with no official action taken by law enforcement investigators, the anonymous housewife would get in contact with the editors of a popular UFO and saucer magazine referred to as Orbit. The editors from Orbit would advise the housewife to gather as much of the material in a jar to be sent for analysis to the magazine publication and possible future investigators. It was at this moment that the housewife claimed to have noticed a bizarre behavior associated with the unexplainable gossamer. According to the housewife and a future Orbit publication, the woman claimed that as she had attempted to gather the white fibrous material, she realized that the gossamer appeared to have been receptive to her touch. As she would make physical contact with the material with her finger, she would notice that the material appeared to twist and curl up as if responding to a human touch. As she would make further attempts to handle the material with a cloth between her fingers and the gossamer, she noticed that the fibers appeared to have no reaction or curling whatsoever to material that was not conductive. Shortly after her strange finding, Orbit editors would advise the woman to reach out to the closest United States Air Force base for analysis and further study, as the material appeared to fit the descriptions and anomalous behaviors of previous angel hair reports. Even more interesting, however, despite local law enforcement officials refusing to acknowledge the case and dismissing the housewife's finding as nothing more than average debris or harmless pollution, Air Force officials, upon being contacted, would swiftly respond to the case and forcibly gather all of the material and samples that the woman had on or around her property and had personally collected. After a few weeks of holding the material, the Air Force would claim to work in tandem with the local air pollution center located within the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, in the hopes of identifying the material as some common type of polluting material being produced within the local region. Although no chemical tests would be made public and no supporting evidence to their claims would come forward, Air Force investigators and air pollution experts claimed that after exposing the material to a series of chemical and microscopic tests, they were able to accurately identify the material as appeared to be commonly produced cupramonium rayon fibers. The investigators would then posit a theory that a nearby local industrial plant was responsible for the debris due to a defective filter. Oddly enough, no fines for any local industrial plants would be made, and no further pursuit into proving their outlandish claims would continue, as the Air Force investigators would consider the entire ordeal to have been a solved case. Not only do ufologist experts deny the explanation, they would posit several issues with the supposed solution after failing to find any evidence of a local industrial plant producing cupramonium rayon or suffering from defective filters causing pollution in the nearby area. Additionally, given the locality of the debris having been found in only a small radius and only within a few hours on an isolated day, researchers found it highly implausible that an industrial plant located more than 40 miles from the housewife's home could have been responsible for the peculiar gossamer. Interestingly enough, the Cincinnati, Ohio angel hair report would not be the only incident actively covered up by United States Air Force personnel. On the 11th of September, back in 1962, several local residents living within the small town of Seabury, Kentucky, became concerned for their health and safety after being exposed to a bizarre substance that many of the eyewitnesses claimed slowly fell from the sky. Although magazines focused on the topic of extraterrestrial contact had already popularized the idea of angel hair being related to extraterrestrial craft, and so could have swayed or primed witnesses to the event, several eyewitnesses to the falling material claimed that they had seen unidentified flying objects floating in the sky, darting between clouds, shortly before the strange gossamer had been deposited. Wishing to gather a sample of the material before it could be blown away, or possibly disintegrate, as has often been reported in angel hair sightings, officers with the state police, alongside a local civil defense director, were immediately sent to where the debris had floated down and gathered the substance which they described as looking similar to spun glass. According to eyewitnesses to the event, the material had been falling in large deposits for almost 2 hours by the time the officers and civil defense director had arrived. Hoping to quickly dispel any fears about the material, the investigators gathered a sample of the spun gossamer and provided the material to the nearby Air Force base for analysis. The results surrounding the analysis of the material were considered to be inconclusive, as Air Force personally claimed the material could have come from 3 possible sources. One possible explanation offered by Air Force personnel claimed that the recovered material could have been chemical waste caused by a defective filter at the nearby industrial park. It has occurred several times in the past surrounding textile plants and chemical plants where defective filters have caused material to exit through a chimney and get caught in the air, often flying and resting in nearby areas miles away. When it comes to the material at Seabury, Kentucky, however, no evidence for the material having come from a nearby chemical or industrial plant seemed to surface. Additionally, given the fact that the majority of the material dropped in an isolated location, it seemed highly implausible to have been caused by natural wind currents spreading thin industrial waste through the air, as the material would have naturally been deposited over an area of several miles. The accepted Air Force explanation detectives used to wrap up the case ended up proving to be far more bizarre than expected. According to Air Force personnel, officers had asked the investigators if the material could have been a unique form of spider silk caused by migrating spiders. Almost immediately, investigators would return to where the material was seen and ask eyewitnesses if they had seen spiders anywhere around the area during the time of the angel hair sighting. One of the eyewitnesses would remark that they had seen a spider sometime during the depositing of the material crawling around on the ground. Due to the eyewitness's testimony, investigators closed the case and dismissed the material as nothing more than spider silk. The Sumerian civilization, nestled in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, is renowned for its pioneering contributions to human history. Among its many achievements, the Sumerians left behind intricate carvings and artifacts that offer tantalizing hints of their advanced understanding of various aspects of life. A subject of intrigue and debate in recent times has been the presence of what appear to be timekeeping devices, often referred to as Sumerian watches, depicted in these ancient carvings. Intriguing carvings and depictions found in Sumerian artifacts have captivated researchers and enthusiasts alike. Among these carvings, some appear to portray what modern eyes might interpret as wristwatches. These objects, nestled on the wrists of various figures, stand out as anomalies within the context of ancient Mesopotamia. The Sumerians were renowned for their advanced understanding of various scientific, mathematical, and astronomical concepts. They were early architects of complex mathematics, the cuneiform writing system, and even the concept of the 60-minute hour. However, the existence of wristwatch-like devices raises questions about their potential knowledge of timekeeping mechanisms that would seem technologically incongruous for their era. In the carvings, individuals are depicted with cylindrical objects resembling modern wristwatches on their wrists. These objects display circular shapes and are accompanied by peculiar appendages that suggest possible crowns or dials. The specificity of their placement and design has led to speculation that these depictions could indeed represent timekeeping devices of some kind. While the idea of wristwatches in ancient Mesopotamia may seem anachronistic, it's important to remember that ancient civilizations had various means of measuring time, often using sundials, water clocks, and celestial observations. The Sumerians, with their advanced knowledge of astronomy, might have devised mechanisms to track time with impressive accuracy, even if they differ significantly from modern wristwatches. Some scholars argue that the wristwatch-like objects may not have been intended to represent functional timekeeping devices. Instead, they suggest that these objects could carry symbolic or ritualistic significance. In ancient cultures, time was often intertwined with religious and cosmic beliefs, and the depiction of these objects could have carried deeper meanings related to the passage of time and the cosmos. The presence of these wristwatch-like objects highlights the complexity of Sumerian culture and the intricacies of their artistic representation. Whether the carvings truly depict timekeeping devices or not, they provide a unique window into the Sumerian perception of time and the objects they associated with it. The depiction of wristwatch-like objects on Sumerian carvings remains a subject of intense debate. Skeptics argue that these objects could be simple adornments, amulets, or representations of tools unrelated to timekeeping. Furthermore, they point out the limitations of Sumerian technology in producing actual wristwatches as we understand them today. The presence of Sumerian watches on ancient carvings invites us to reflect on the challenges of interpreting artifacts from bygone eras. It underscores the delicate balance between recognizing the sophistication of ancient civilizations and avoiding the imposition of modern perspectives onto their achievements. Regardless of whether the wristwatch-like objects were functional timekeeping devices, symbols of cosmic significance, or artistic renderings, they serve as a reminder of the mysteries that linger in the shadows of ancient history. These enigmatic carvings compel us to continue our exploration of the Sumerian civilization, its beliefs, and its contributions to human progress. The Sumerians' knowledge of the cosmos. The clay disc contains a star map from ancient Sumerian civilization. The ancient Sumerians had a certain level of astronomical knowledge, as seen in their records. Unfortunately, much of this knowledge has been lost over time, and only a few fragments remain to give us a glimpse into their understanding of the universe. The Babylonian astronomical knowledge, in comparison to the later standards of Babylonian astronomy, seems relatively rudimentary. Ancient clay tablets from Babylon that have withstood the test of time since the beginning of Mesopotamian civilization document the earliest recorded instance of a total solar eclipse observed in Ugarit. The majority of our knowledge regarding their involvement in ancient astronomy comes from the Babylonian culture, which indirectly transmitted this information. In early Babylonian records, Sumerian star names are used, indicating the existence of a shared body of knowledge that was passed down through generations. A Sumerian seal depicts the sun positioned in the middle of 11 celestial objects. The Sumerians appeared to possess knowledge of the heliocentric nature of the solar system. Within certain tablets, they documented the presence of 11 celestial bodies or planets. The celestial bodies known as planets and moons, traditionally totaling 9 planets and 2 moons, have been observed. However, there is some uncertainty surrounding the exact composition and understanding of these bodies in relation to their rotation around the sun. A 12th celestial object has been discovered outside of our solar system. Scientists are currently engaged in the endeavor of identifying an entity that potentially exists in an orbit beyond the outer planets of our solar system. The knowledge of our solar system was already present among the Sumerians, who lived about 3,000 years before the ancient Greek astronomers. They recorded their understanding of the solar system on clay tablets, using cuneiform writing and illustrations. This information predates the ancient Greeks' knowledge of the subject by several millennia. The Sumerian civilization is widely regarded as the birthplace of human civilization and is recognized as the oldest in human history, with a history that dates back more than 8,000 years. This ancient settlement and civilization emerged in the region known as Mesopotamia, which encompasses present-day Iraq, parts of Iran, Anatolia, and Central Asia. The Sumerians had a highly developed culture and society, encompassing a well-established government, educational institutions, social structure, reliable food sources, religious beliefs, artistic expression, advanced mathematics, astronomy, astrology, medicine, various technologies, and numerous significant innovations. The ancient civilization developed a method of written communication utilizing wedge-shaped symbols known as cuneiform. They meticulously recorded their historical information and documents on clay tablets. Moreover, they demonstrated their innovation by creating musical instruments like the golden harp, as well as crafting exquisite jewelry, metallic objects, stoneware, and textiles. In the Sumerian cosmology, the universe was intricately woven with mythology and spirituality. The Sumerians believed that the universe was populated by a pantheon of deities who held sway over various aspects of existence. Enlil, the god of air and storms, and Anu, the god of the heavens, were just a few of the celestial beings believed to influence human affairs. The Sumerians closely observed the movements of celestial bodies, attributing significance to their positions in the sky. The cyclical patterns of the sun, moon, and stars were seen as reflections of the divine will, affecting everything from agricultural cycles to the fates of kings and kingdoms. The celestial bodies were considered divine messengers, carrying messages from the gods to the earthly realm. Ziggurats, towering stepped temples, were architectural marvels that dominated Sumerian cityscapes. These structures held profound cosmological significance, often being built with precise astronomical alignments. Ziggurats were designed to mirror the celestial order, with their corners aligned to the cardinal points of the compass, paying homage to the heavens and symbolizing the connection between the earthly and divine realms. The Sumerians believed in a hierarchical cosmic order where the divine and mortal realms were intricately interconnected. They viewed the universe as a structured continuum, with the gods residing in the heavens above and humans inhabiting the earthly plane. This belief fostered a sense of responsibility to maintain harmony and appease the deities through offerings and prayers. Their strange creation myth. One of the biggest mysteries of the ancient Sumerian culture appears to be that of the inspiration and tale of their mysterious creation myth. According to the ancient Sumerians, their oldest scriptures tell of the earth being inhabited by human-like gods that had come from the stars. These beings made attempts to make the world habitable and quickly began to toil the soil and mine the world for minerals that could be used. After a while, the gods referred that their labor was too great and refused to have to work at such an impossible task on their own. This led to one of the gods proposing to create human beings that could be made in their likeness using the body of another god of whom they could force to work to gather minerals and toil the ground. Originally, the humans that had been created were unable to reproduce and have children, as the gods were fearful of them multiplying. However, this quickly changed after two gods granted humans the ability to reproduce, allowing them to also leave the Eden they inhabited, a land that is translated to mean a flat terrain. This angered one of the gods, leading to a massive conflict to which one of the gods became the enemy of man, and the other became the ruler of man, and allowed them to be fruitful and multiply over the world. These terms of modifications, creation, and the formation of an Eden have left many wondering instead that perhaps these ancient biblically similar accounts are evidence of advanced beings having genetically created and modified humans as a labor force, only to be given equal rights and abilities that have slowly evolved. The mysterious origin of their language. Though many aspects of the ancient Sumerian origins are shrouded in mystery, there is none more so mysterious than that of the origin and formation of the ancient Sumerian spoken language that is possibly among one of the oldest spoken and written languages in the history of humanity. When the first few written artifacts were gathered from that of the ancient Sumerian civilization, many believed that the spoken language of the ancient civilization was that of Akkadian, a language used by the Semitic people throughout the region, as the written alphabet of cuneiform seemed to have matched the Akkadian writings and styles. Further gathered evidence proved that the language of the people was a distinct language now completely forgotten, with no surviving remnants of the spoken dialect that predated the Akkadian usage, as well as being the first formed written language in history, soon being adopted by the Semitic people and used as a written language for many more millennia after the fall of the ancient Sumerian civilization. This loss of the language have left many experts puzzling over its formation, influence, and possible similar-sounding language descendants in the modern day to trace the evolution of language across humanity. Though it was, at one time, believed that the Akkadian language was similar to that of the Sumerian. Given the adoption of cuneiform, it is now known that the language may not have sounded anything alike and seems to be a relic of the past, with no evidence or trace of such a dialect existing in the modern day. Uncovering the mysteries of the language could prove to help researchers to better understand the formation of languages, the evolution of languages over time, as well as the major influences that the ancient Sumerian civilization had, being one of the first ever civilizations to have risen around the world. Throughout history, various ancient civilizations and cultures have left behind intriguing artifacts and symbols that continue to baffle archaeologists and historians. One enigmatic motif that has captured attention is the depiction of a handbag in ancient carvings, sculptures and artworks found across different countries and cultures. Interestingly, a man came forward and said that he discovered one of these handbags in the Middle East. He went on to detail that he's a digger that looks for ancient artifacts, and notes that many of his discoveries have been sent to museums across the world. He shared this photograph with us, saying that it was his most recent discovery and that it closely resembled those handbags that can be seen in ancient Sumerian carvings. The man said that the handbag is a symbol, characterized by its distinct shape and handle, and has been discovered in diverse regions and time periods. From ancient Egypt to Mesopotamia, from Mesoamerica to Easter Island, representations of this enigmatic object have been unearthed, suggesting a shared significance across vast distances and cultural boundaries. The handbag appears in reliefs, statues and hieroglyphs, raising questions about its symbolic meaning and potential cultural exchange. Oddly enough, he said that when he discovered this artifact, someone approached him about buying it. He found this strange, as at the time he didn't tell anyone about the discovery, and found it odd how this individual knew about this object. The digger said the man was very keen to buy it, and asked whether anyone had seen it, at which point he said that he hadn't shared any photographs of it. What the man found strange about this individual was how badly they wanted this artifact, and the digger said that to this day, this was the most expensive item he sold, saying that the mysterious individual gave him tens of thousands of dollars for it. When the digger asked the man about his name and where he was from, he said that the strange individual ignored him, but did say that before he left, the man said that if he found any more of these items, that he would be in contact. The digger found this strange, as he had never seen this man before, and couldn't understand where he came from and how he knew about this discovery. Luckily enough, the digger had taken some photographs of the objects shortly before he was approached, and was able to share them with us. As of right now, the digger is baffled by the experience and couldn't understand why the man wanted the object so desperately. He didn't take a photograph of him, but did describe him as being very tall, wearing a black suit with black shoes, and talking in a very monotone voice. He said that he's never seen the man before, and that he didn't blend in with anyone from the area. The digger said that he has no idea where the artifact was taken, or whether it was purchased by a museum or for himself. Scholars and researchers have proposed various interpretations for the handbag symbol. Some believe it represents a vessel of power or knowledge, carrying the secrets of ancient civilizations or spiritual wisdom. Others associate it with the concept of rebirth, symbolizing the journey of the soul or the transition between different realms. The handbag has also been linked to prosperity, suggesting a connection to rituals or beliefs related to sustenance and growth. The presence of the handbag symbol across different cultures and geographical locations highlights the possibility of cross-cultural connections and exchanges in ancient times. It suggests that ancient civilizations might have shared ideas, concepts, or even physical artifacts through trade routes, migrations, or cultural interactions. The symbolic journey of the handbag implies a common thread that unites seemingly disparate cultures in their understanding of the world and its mysteries. The handbag symbol has sparked numerous theories and speculations. Some propose advanced influence, suggesting that ancient civilizations received advanced knowledge or technology from otherworldly beings. Others interpret it as a symbol of a lost civilization or an ancient global culture that predates known history. However, these theories remain speculative, and further research and archaeological evidence are necessary to provide conclusive explanations. The enigmatic handbag symbol found in ancient carvings across cultures and countries continues to captivate the imagination and provoke questions about our shared human experience. Its presence suggests a common language of symbolism that transcended time and geographic boundaries. While interpretations vary, the handbag remains a potent symbol representing mystery, power, and hidden knowledge. Unraveling its true meaning requires interdisciplinary research, comparative analysis, and a deeper understanding of the cultures that left behind these ancient depictions. The handbag symbol invites us to embark on a symbolic journey, connecting the threads of humanity's past and offering a glimpse into the universal concepts that unite us. The ancient Sumerians, who inhabited the land of Mesopotamia, present-day southern Iraq, between the 4th and 3rd millennia BCE, were a remarkable civilization that laid the foundation for many aspects of human culture and civilization. Central to their worldview was a diverse pantheon of gods and goddesses, each associated with different aspects of life, nature, and the divine order. The Sumerian pantheon was a complex assembly of gods and goddesses, with each deity holding specific dominion over various realms. Among the prominent deities were Anu, the god of the heavens, Enlil, the lord of the air and storms, and Inanna, the goddess of love. The divine hierarchy established the power dynamics among the gods, with Enlil often regarded as the highest authority. Sumerian mythology featured captivating creation stories and narratives that explained the origins of the universe and humanity. One of the most renowned tales is the Enuma Elish, which describes the struggle for supremacy between the gods, culminating in the creation of the world. Another notable myth involves the epic hero Gilgamesh, who embarks on a quest for immortality, showcasing themes of mortality, friendship, and the nature of divinity. The gods played a significant role in Sumerian society, influencing various aspects of life, from governance and law to agriculture and warfare. The king, as the representative of the gods on earth, held a sacred role and derived his authority from divine endorsement. Legal codes and administrative systems were established with the gods' guidance, ensuring justice, order, and social harmony. Additionally, the gods were invoked for protection, success in battle, and bountiful harvests. Sumerian religion and mythology had a profound impact on subsequent cultures in Mesopotamia and beyond. One of the most significant contributions of the Sumerians was the development of the first known writing system, known as cuneiform. Using wedge-shaped impressions on clay tablets, Sumerian scribes recorded economic transactions, religious texts, historical accounts, and literature. Cuneiform was a complex system that allowed for the dissemination of knowledge, fostering the growth of literature and the preservation of cultural heritage. The Sumerians established some of the earliest known legal codes, such as the Code of Ur-Nammu and the Code of Lipit Ishtar, which laid the groundwork for later legal systems. These codes emphasized justice, fairness, and the protection of individual rights. Additionally, the Sumerians developed administrative systems, with officials responsible for taxation, record-keeping, and maintaining public infrastructure. These innovations facilitated governance and the efficient management of a growing society. The Sumerians had a rich and complex religious belief system centered around polytheism. They worshipped a diverse pantheon of gods and goddesses, each associated with different aspects of life, nature, and the divine order. Their religious rituals and ceremonies played a vital role in society, ensuring the well-being and prosperity of their communities. The legacy of the Sumerians extends far beyond their own civilization. Their inventions and cultural achievements heavily influenced later civilizations in Mesopotamia and beyond. The cuneiform script spread to other cultures, including the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Legal principles and administrative systems developed by the Sumerians provided a blueprint for future governance structures. Sumerian myths and religious motifs influenced the pantheons and beliefs of subsequent cultures. The Sumerians laid the groundwork for the development of urbanization, agriculture, and complex social structures, leaving an indelible mark on human history. The Sumerians harnessed their ingenuity to improve agricultural practices and maximize productivity. They constructed intricate irrigation systems, such as canals and dikes, to divert water from rivers and distribute it to their fields. This allowed for year-round cultivation, enhancing crop yields and supporting a growing population. The use of the plough, pulled by oxen, revolutionized farming by facilitating efficient tilling of the soil and preparing it for planting. The Sumerians were skilled in working with metals, particularly copper and bronze. They developed techniques to extract and refine these metals, enabling the production of tools, weapons, and decorative objects. Copper and bronze alloys were employed in the creation of intricate jewelry, statuettes, and ornamental items, showcasing the Sumerians' artistic sensibilities and craftsmanship. The Sumerians recognized the importance of transportation and trade for their expanding civilization. They constructed road networks connecting various city-states and established river trade routes, utilizing boats and barges to transport goods along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Their mastery of watercraft allowed for efficient movement of goods, facilitating trade with distant regions and fostering cultural exchange. Sumerian architecture reflected their advanced understanding of engineering principles. They constructed impressive structures using mud bricks, designing multi-story buildings with flat roofs and intricate facades. The Sumerians developed innovative construction methods, including the use of arches, vaults, and buttresses, which provided stability and allowed for the construction of monumental edifices such as ziggurats and city walls. Joseph of Cupertino levitation. Saint Joseph of Cupertino is a character of legend. It's reported that by his mid-20s he was able to take to the skies and float around effortlessly. The beginning of Joseph's life was truly challenging and tragic. For one, his father passed away, leaving a mountain of debt that caused his family home to be confiscated. His mother was forced to give birth to him in a shed behind that house, inside which they hid from the creditors. She was far from capable of truly caring for Joseph, as he needed her to physically, mentally, and emotionally. She was unable to feed him well, and he was undernourished and sickly from the beginning. She became frustrated with him and could not hold back abusing him and taking out her frustrations on him. Later in life, Joseph was unable to learn at school or in an apprenticeship with a shoemaker. Many people who met Joseph supposedly reported him as dull and absent-minded, unable to form thoughts into speech and communicate like his peers. In fact, the only thing he seemed interested and capable of was becoming a servant of a monastery. He was transformed by this, became much gentler and kinder, and began begging for the poor. In time, he would be given another chance and become a Catholic priest in 1628. Many occurrences of Joseph's flights from then on are proclaimed. He was said to have flown up to plant a cross into its socket for some labourers, soar into the sky and hover over a crowd of people during a feast, and was even witnessed levitating by Pope Urban VIII. This earned him the nickname the Flying Saint. He was also reported to unblind and cure many sick children, so much so that the ill began to seek him out. Miracle of the Sun in Fatima. In 1917 in Fatima, Portugal, many people claimed to have witnessed the sun moving. As they looked up into the sky, it became a well-defined, dull, great white disk which spun around and moved about the sky above them. Some witnesses say they saw the sun come closer to them, while others saw everything in a deep amethyst colour. One thing is for sure though, this was no ordinary Friday. Around noon that day in Fatima, spectators of the phenomenon began to see a change in the atmospheric conditions. Prior to this, it had been muddy and wet, and the air around them seemed to change. Then, as described by one man who was present, the sun started breaking. Nobody had any clue what was going on, and their view of our nearest star began warping and shifting. It appeared to spin and whir around in the sky, changing colours, and some thought it even came closer to the earth. The wind started to blow. Witnesses began to confess their sins, and soon enough they realized the ground was dry. Their clothes were also dry. Many witnesses of this event believe it to be a true miracle, and supposedly the event quelled a growing atheist population at the time. Skeptics would probably point to optical distortions caused by clouds called sundogs, visual disturbances caused by staring at the sun, or even some sort of collective delusion. After all, there is no evidence that it rained as much as some witnesses claimed it did. Also, if the sun itself began moving and changing, it's likely that some of the millions of other people below the same sun would have reported the same things. All these people in Fatima, however, were there to witness a miracle told in Christian prophecy. It's quite possible that while expecting to witness a miracle, they happened to see some disturbances in their optical view of the sun due to clouds of ice crystals or stratospheric dust. While possible that reports such as that of seeing a violet hue over everything were due to retinal damage from staring at the sun for too long, the biggest hole in the story is that most of the reports of the event have differing details. Some saw purple everywhere. Some others saw a blue and yellow sun, and some say it was brighter, clearer, and closer. Regardless of what you truly believe occurred in Fatima in October of 1917, the phenomenon is historic and mystical.
Iron Crown of Lombardy. According to historians, the Iron Crown of Lombardy was made during the early Middle Ages in the 4th or 5th century. It consists of a large ring of gold that is fitted with a silver band and some precious jewels, all fitted around an iron ring. It is believed that the Iron Crown contains a 1 centimeter wide iron band that was beaten out of one of the nails used at the crucifixion of Jesus. The crown became a symbol of the Kingdom of Lombards. Later, it was in the custody of the medieval Kingdom of Italy and was used for the coronation of kings in Italy during the 11th and 14th century. Today, this mysterious ancient relic is present in the Cathedral of Monza, which is located near Milan in Italy. According to the popular tradition, the crown was made by Saint Helena, who was the mother of Constantine the Great. She had discovered a nail from the true cross when she ordered to forge a crown around the beaten nail. She believed that it would bring blessings and good fortune to her son. Later, the crown was passed to Theodolena, who was a princess of the Lombards. She received it as a gift from Pope Gregory the Great. In 628 AD, Princess Theodolena donated the crown to the church in Monza. There has been a strong argument amongst the religious scholars over the authenticity of the nail that was used to forge the crown. To this day, there is no consensus about its authenticity. However, it is kept at the Cathedral of Monza just outside of Milan and is considered to be a sacred relic. According to the cathedral authorities, the inner iron ring of the crown is in perfect condition and has shown no signs of rusting, despite being made thousands of years ago. In one of the studies conducted in 1985, it was revealed that magnets do not get attracted to the crown's iron ring. Like many other artifacts associated to Jesus, this artifact is also likely to be a subject of debate amongst historians as well as the religious scholars for many decades to come.
Gabriel Amorth was a Catholic priest and the chief exorcist of the Vatican. He was born in Modena, Italy, in 1925 and was ordained a priest in 1954. Amorth became involved in exorcism in the 1980s and was appointed as the chief exorcist of the Vatican in 1986, a position he held until his passing in 2016. Amorth was known for his outspoken views on the subject of possession and the practice of exorcism. He estimated that he had personally conducted tens of thousands of exorcisms during his career and was a strong advocate for the Catholic Church's teachings on the reality of the devil and the need for exorcisms. Perhaps one of the most terrifying things he said during his life was that he believed the devil was inside the Vatican. In an interview with the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, Father Gabriele Amorth, a leading exorcist in the Catholic Church, defends his work, as well as that of the Association of Exorcists. According to Amorth, although the devil is not omnipresent, his presence can cause immense pain and suffering. The ritual of exorcism is a complex and challenging process that requires the full will of a man, and detailed that this can have physical and psychological effects on the human body, many of which you never recover from. As per his claim, he has successfully treated more than 70,000 cases of demonic possession. The evil spirit is believed to be pure spirit, and thus is considered invincible. When a person is possessed by the devil, they are often heard blurting out painful blasphemies. It is also said that the devil can remain hidden for long periods of time and can speak in different languages. These attributes of the devil are widely acknowledged, but those involved in this phenomena have said that you need to be incredibly well versed in order to be able to take on this entity. According to Father Amorth, he has the ability to transform himself, but at the time admitted that he was not scared of this gift. During his time as an exorcist, he carried around artifacts in a small pouch and believed that God had chosen him for this work. However, when he was asked if the devil could strike inside Vatican City, Father Amorth became serious and started to show slight discomfort. Despite his fearlessness, at the time he understood the gravity of the question and the potential consequences of such an encounter with this entity. This highlights the importance of spiritual protection in even the most holy of places. The individual in question has a history of attempts to cause harm to religious figures, particularly those of the Catholic faith. Back in 1981, Father Amorth detailed that the devil attacked John Paul II. Father Amorth said that although this dark entity was inside the Vatican, he never feared it and always felt like God was behind him. He said that it's for this reason that he kept the position of lead exorcist for so long, and detailed that many people were cured during his time at the church, noting that after they were fixed, they never exhibited any other problems. Demonic possession is a topic that is often debated, and opinions may vary depending on cultural, religious, and scientific beliefs. From a religious or spiritual perspective, demonic possession is typically seen as a serious and real phenomenon that requires intervention from a trained exorcist or spiritual leader. In some cultures, such as those with strong belief in the supernatural, demonic possession is taken very seriously and treated as a legitimate concern. From a scientific perspective, there is little evidence to support the existence of demonic possession. The symptoms attributed to possession can often be explained by natural causes. Regardless of one's beliefs, it is important to approach cases of suspected possession with compassion, empathy, and an open mind. The Catholic Church considers exorcism as a religious practice that involves the expulsion of evil spirits or demons from a person who is believed to be possessed. The Catholic Church has a specific set of guidelines for performing exorcisms, and only authorized priests who have received special training are allowed to perform them. The Catholic Church recognizes that demonic possession is a rare phenomenon, and they emphasize the importance of ruling out other possible explanations, such as natural illnesses, before attempting an exorcism. Before performing an exorcism, the priest is required to obtain permission from the bishop of their diocese, who will typically consult with medical professionals and mental health experts to confirm that there is no other explanation for the person's symptoms. During an exorcism, the priest will typically pray, read from the Bible, and use holy water and other religious objects to try to expel the demon. The exorcism may take place in a church or other religious setting, and the person being exorcised may be restrained to prevent harm to themselves or others. The Catholic Church stresses the importance of treating the person with compassion and respect during the exorcism process. Overall, the Catholic Church takes the issue of demonic possession seriously, but also recognizes the importance of approaching the issue with caution and discernment.
The Zozo demon. The Zozo demon is a spirit who you may not have heard of. This mysterious and newly discovered entity is not one to take lightly, and the story of its existence is as frightening as it is interesting. The Zozo demon is a mischievous spiritual entity that makes contact with humans through the use of Ouija boards. Those who have reported to come into contact with Zozo state that he reveals himself by guiding those using the Ouija board into making figure eights, before moving frantically between the letters Z and O. Zozo's interactions with humans often begin friendly and cordial, but they soon turn frightening. Zozo has been reported to curse and threaten those who are present at the Ouija board. Believers in the existence of Zozo state that he has his origins in ancient times, dating back to societies from thousands of years ago in Africa. Still, his beginnings are shrouded in mystery, However, the first textual reference to Zozo first happened in 1818, in a book with the story of a young village girl who stated that she had been possessed by 3 different demons called Mimi, Crapule, and one named Zozo. In 2009, after years of obscurity, the demonic presence of Zozo began to undergo significant popularity through the work of a man named Darren Evans. Evans, a man from Oklahoma in the United States, claimed that he had come into contact with a demon called Zozo. Evans published his accounts through a website. In his post, Evans detailed how he had been interested in ghosts and the occult from a young age. Still, he admitted he had never seen or experienced anything like the demon Zozo. Zozo was different. Evans stated that Zozo revealed himself regularly, too many times to count. Zozo would adopt the presence of a friendly spirit before changing to more aggressive behavior, often cursing in what Evans described as looked like Latin or Hebrew. I was genuinely fascinated and startled by how many times Zozo showed up, even in many different states and many different Ouija boards, Evans wrote in his famous post. He continued to assert that Zozo also made many threats against his young daughter, who was still a toddler. Evans claims that Zozo nearly drowned her in the bathtub and infected her with an unknown affliction or illness. He stated this is when he began to suspect a demonic attack. The post by Evans soon started to gain traction among fans of the paranormal online. Readers began to tell their own stories, many with striking similarities to that of Evans. Whether or not you believe in Evans' story, many who fear the occult certainly do. In 2012, an independent feature film named I Am Zozo was released, which actually features a cameo by Darren Evans himself.